Okay, so I think one of the person has connected with attendee. Who is this?
Bhavana, sir.
What's the name?
Bhavana.
Okay. Please try to connect with your name from tomorrow onwards. You can just log out and provide that name while logging. Okay, so let me start the session. In today's session, we are going to develop ODATA service by using existing BAPI functionality. So, okay, developing ODATA web service using BAPI with mapping technique. This is one of the concepts, but don't think that this is the only technique. This is just one of the technique in ODATA service. This is not the final technique. This is one of the technique to make use of existing BAPI functionalities. So this BAPI with mapping technique, you can use it if you have a database functionality directly already available in BAPI itself. So let me write a note. This is just one of the approach to develop ODATA web service. Developing ODATA service by using BAPI with mapping technique. It is just one of the approach to develop ODATA service. So use this technique. In case if complete database functionality is already available in BAPI which you are trying to use. Use this technique in case if the complete database functionality is already available in a BAPI. If the complete database functionality, if complete database functionality is not part of BAPI, then we have to use other techniques which we are going to discuss from coming days. But this technique is required if you feel that the complete database functionality is already available inside a BAPI. Let me write step-by-step procedure. Let me take one common BAPI here. Step 1 is just analyze the BAPI which you want to use. I'll try to use a common BAPI, that is, for example, BAPI flight get list. So basically, step 1 is analyze the BAPI which you want to use. You need to analyze what is input, what is output, etc. So that means you can open SE37, that's one of the T code, function builder. So first you need to analyze input for BAPI and you need to analyze the output for a BAPI. What is input, what is output, that you need to recognize first. So in our case, we are going to analyze this BAPI flight get list here. You can provide the BAPI name. So you need to recognize. Analysis means you just need to recognize the input for BAPI. You need to recognize the output for a BAPI. And make sure that the database operation is already available in a BAPI which you are trying to use. So here, let me just open that. So let me go to SC37, that's a T code. You can analyze a BAP in this. I've decided to use BAPI flight get list. So this BAPI basically contains some various parameters, input parameters and output parameters, and some source code. So here you can see there are some importing parameters for this BAPI itself, like airline, destination from, destination to, max rows. And all these are optional parameters. They're not mandatory. You can see this. Airline is input, destination from, destination to, max rows. These are the 4 input parameters for this BAPI, and all these are optional parameters here. You can see this. Okay, let me just take this screenshot. So if you open BAPI flight get list, in this case, there is some input parameters, like one of the parameter is airline. Okay, so let me go to this one. If I go to exporting, there is no exporting parameter, but there is tables option which can send the output. There's a tables parameter which can be used to send the output to the ODATA service or the front-end application. So in tables parameter, you can see flight list is one of the important parameter which can send list of flights records as part of output. Flight list, it will send or it will fetch list of flights data here. You can see this. Okay, so the same BAPI flight get list contains this one. BAPI flight get list. It also contains table section here. Table section also can be used for output. In this case, you can see flight list is one of the option here. So what I've decided is, from ODATA point of view and from UI5 Fiori point of view, I just want to use airline for accepting input. I want to use, for example, flight list for sending the output. And don't forget, all these are optional parameters. If there is no input, you will get all records. If you don't provide any input, you will get all records here, because they are optional parameters for input. Okay, so let us use these two things from front-end point of view and ODATA service point of view. So input point of view, I want to use, for example, airline. So input point of view, I've decided to use, for example, airline as one of the parameter. And output point of view, I can use flight list, flight underscore list. That's a parameter here for sending the output. Now, if I go to source code, for example, if I go to source code, in source code, you can see the database functionality is already implemented here. This is an existing BAPI. As I told you, if the functionality is already part of BAPI, especially if the database functionality is already part of BAPI, then you can access this in ODATA service in two ways. One is with mapping technique, another is without mapping technique. So if you are using mapping, then make sure that the entire functionality is already part of this BAPI. For example, here you can see It is trying to read relevant flights data and return the data. So it is trying to execute a select query here based on some where clause in this case. So that means here there is a select query which is already part of this BAPI. So I need not write a select query inside ODATA because the select query is already available in BAPI. I can access this BAPI and I can just maintain a mapping technique to pass input to get the output. Okay, so let me just, here you can see the same BAPI flight get list contains a source code. In this case, there is a select query already available here, which will fetch relevant flights data and it will return the data. So that means here select query already available in a BAPI. So in this situation, we can directly use a mapping technique with a BAPI from ODATA service. You can pass input to BAPI and BAPI will give the output. That we have to do it through ODATA service. And ODATA service can be used in front-end application like UEFI and Fiori. Okay, so here, now I want to understand what is input, what is output, how exactly this BAPI will behave. So let me just test it here. You can press F8. So I'm not providing any input here. Input is optional. So let us make input as blank and execute this BAPI here. Then you can see there are 4,873 records that are coming to flight list in this case. You can see there are 4,873 records that are coming to flight list here. So American Airlines, you can see various types of airlines. That output is displayed here through BAPI. Delta Airlines and Japan Airlines, you can see all those records are coming to this part of output. Lufthansa Airways. So in this case, you are able to get all records when input is blank. Input is optional, so it is blank. Even then, you'll get all records here. Okay, so let me just take this. So input is blank in this case, technically. You can recognize that. When input is blank, you are getting all output records to this flight list here. Okay, let me pass some input here. So you can go back. You can pass some input. For example, DL, Delta Airlines. So when you execute, now you can see there are 315 records that are coming to flight list here. Flight list is output parameter in table section. So all output records matching with DL, those records are displayed here. Delta Airlines, you can see that. Okay, let me just take this so that we can build one simple scenario. So when airline is DL, Delta Airlines, so those records are retrieved here as part of flight list output. 315 records are displayed. Now, if I go back and if I change it, for example, UA, United Airlines, and if I execute the service, that means execute the BAPI, then there are 535 output records coming to flight list here. So you can see United Airlines, UA, those records are retrieved here. So the select query is executing this inside a BAPI in this scenario. Okay, so now you can see when input is, for example, airline UA, United Airlines. So those records we are able to fetch it to flight list as part of output. So when input is blank, you're getting all records here. When input is DL, you're getting those specific records here. When input is UA, you're getting those specific records. So based on this assumption, so what we can do is we can develop ODATA service and we can maintain a mapping with this BAPI flight get list here. So in this entire scenario, the select query gets executed inside a BAPI, not directly in ODATA service. Okay, let me take this screenshot. So here you can see I've decided to use airline as part of input, and I can get flight list with collection of output records when the BAPI flight get list is executed. And don't forget here, so that is basically step one. Whichever BAPI you want to use, first analyze what is input, what is output. Recognize those things. Now, step two is you can create an ODATA service by using SEGWT code. So you can create ODATA ABAP service project. That is step two. Open SEGW. You can just click on create icon and just provide project name. Provide some description. And you can save in package. In real time, save it in package. For practice purpose, you can use local and continue. So that's how you can create ODATA service project. Let me do that here. Okay, you can see I'm trying to go to SEGW service builder. Let me create by using this first icon. So let me provide, for example, 6:30 a.m. BAPI ODATA project. Use some name and save it in package or local. So now you can see, as usual, you'll get 4 folders here, which I've already discussed theoretically earlier. This is a project name, and this is just the description, save in package or local, then continue. Now, by using this BAPI, I want to develop ODATA service. Okay, first let me give that simple requirement so that you can understand end-to-end data flow. So whatever ODATA services we create, basically it is created by keeping in mind UI5 Fiori development. So SAP UI5 or Fiori is a front-end app. From front-end app, we can pass the input. From front-end application, we can pass some input. For example, you can create one input form here. Provide something like airline ID as part of input. And here you can have one button in the front end. That is, for example, get flights data, some button like this, and we can have an output. Output can be, for example, it can be a table, or you can use list or chart, microchart, whatever. It all depends. Assume that we are going with a table here. The front end can be something like this. So there can be an input form with input field, for example, airline ID. And here there can be a button, get flights data, and the output can be displayed in a table format. Okay, let me just complete this. So output can be displayed in table format here. So input is airline ID and output can be displayed in a table format. When you click get flights button, this is with respect to front end screen. But this front end screen can access ODATA service here. We can develop an ODATA ABAP service such that we can satisfy that particular screen. So in ODATA service, we can create one input option, for example, airline ID. That is for accepting inputs. You have to create that inside ODATA service. And for sending the output, you need to create an entity set here. At ODATA service level, you need to create an entity set. For example, we'll try to create flight set as an entity set. So that is for sending the output. We need to create here. So at ODATA ABAP service level, we are going to create a parameter for accepting input from front end and entity set for sending the output to the front end. So that's how you need to arrange these things in ODATA service level. And this ODATA service can access a BAPI. Every service need not access a BAPI. Accessing BAPI is just one of the technique. Don't think that this is just the final scenario. It's not like that. This is just one of the technique. Without BAPI also, we are going to develop the applications. So using BAPI is one of the techniques. So in this example, for example, let me go with BAPI flight get list here. So this BAPI flight get list can have some parameters. According to our analysis, airline is one of the inputs for accepting input from ODATA service. You can utilize that. And flight list, flight underscore list is sending the output here. And don't forget, BAPI in this example contains a select query with complete functionality. So this is already part of BAPI, airline for input, flight list for output, along with select query. Now, what exactly happens is we can develop an ODATA service such that ODATA service can accept input coming from front end here. We can develop ODATA service such that the front end can pass input to the ODATA service. The front end UI5 query can pass input to this ODATA service. ODATA service can send that input to the BAPI here. And BAPI will execute select query. And after executing select query, flight list will send the output to ODATA service entity set here. And this flight set entity set will send output to the front end table here. Entity set, in this case, we are going to use something like flight set. So that will send the output to the front end. It can be UI5 or query. In the front end, they need to use just configuration of entity set for table. So input from UI5 app will go to ODATA service. ODATA service will pass input to BAPI. BAPI executes select query based on that input. And flight list of a BAPI will send output to entity set in ODATA service. ODATA service entity set will send output to a table screen element to the front end screen. So whatever BAPI you create, especially according to today's scenario, it will have this type of data flow behavior. Let me just explain here. When we create OData service with the help of existing BAPIs, front-end applications will be in a position to pass input to OData service. OData service can pass input to BAPI here. BAPI executes select query, and this flight list of a BAPI will send output to entity set here in OData service. And this entity set of a OData service will pass output to the front-end application. It can be UI5 or Fiori application. So as a developer, when you're using BAPI, you have to maintain mapping between OData service and BAPI. That is input mapping you need to maintain here. And you need to maintain output mapping here. So between OData ABAP service and BAPI, you need to maintain input mapping for passing input from OData to BAPI. You need to maintain output mapping for receiving output from BAPI to OData service. And in the front-end side, you need to create one filter input field, and you need to create a table screen element in the front end along with a button. Okay, so let me just save this. This is like end-to-end requirement diagram. Just you can assume like that. So our ultimate goal will be developing front-end applications which look like this: input forms, buttons, tables. For that reason, we have to construct OData service. In this example, OData service is going to use a BAPI. There will be some examples without BAPI also. There, you can write a select query directly in OData service. That's also possible. We are going to discuss from next session onwards. But in this example, a front-end UI5 Fiori will access OData service will access a BAPI. It's one of the technique. Okay, so let me just save this and let us go to the next step. That is step 3. To make this successful, what you do is first create an entity type and entity set inside data model. So here you can see there is data model. You can just right click this data model, import from DDIC structure. First, you need to import the fields for input and output purpose. Inside OData service, you have to import. So let me create entity type, for example, flight. And let me import the fields from a BAPI related structure, that is BAPI SFL DAT. This is a structure used inside BAPI, the same structure we are referring inside OData service. And I want to create entity set, so let us select this checkbox. So here and price, currency, etc. So all the list of fields are part of this structure. So I'm using the same structure in ODATA to import the same fields. So, okay, let me just take this structure here. BAPI SFL DAT structure. So it contains all this list of fields. And this is a structure used inside ODATA. Sorry, it is used inside BAPI. The same structure we are referring in ODATA also. This is for importing the fields. After importing the fields, we can maintain mappings. Okay, so let me use that here. That is BAPI SFL DAT. So if anyone is new, just remember that we are just creating entity type here. And we are creating entity set by selecting this checkbox. And the fields will be imported from this so-and-so structure. So first one is entity type. Entity type we have provided as flight. So when the entity set is created, it is created as flight set automatically. If it is XYZ, then you will get XYZ SET. If it is ABC, then you'll get ABC SET. In our case, it is flight, so you'll get entity set as flight set. Fields imported from BAPI related structure in this case. This is how we are going to create entity type and entity set. So let me do that here. Let me click next. Now, whichever fields you want, you can select from that structure, BAPI SFL DAT structure. Or you can select specific fields, it's up to you. So let me select all the fields here, then click next here. And entity type should have at least one field as key field. So let us make, for example, airline ID as key field. Then click finish. Now you can see all the list of fields are imported here as part of property section for so-and-so entity type. Entity type contains properties. They are nothing but fields. The fields are imported here. And entity set is also created here. So entity type contains collection of fields with data type and length. It contains collection of fields with data type and length. That is the main part of entity type here. And there is an entity set as flight set. So don't worry about other options. We are going to discuss at right time. And you can see, if you go to service implementation also contains an entity set, and it is generated with a list of 5 CRUD queue methods here. Service implementation contains an entity set. Entity set contains this collection of methods here. 5 CRUD queue methods for the newly created entity set. So that's available here. With create entity, delete entity, get entity set, update entity. Okay, so just right click, data model, import from DDIC structure. Just provide entity type, for example, flight, ABAP structure, BAPI SFLDAT. Why we are using this structure? Because BAPI also internally used this structure for the fields. So the same structure we are referring in ODATA. And just select checkbox to create entity set. In our case, it becomes flight set. And here you need to select, you can select the fields. If you want, you can select all the fields and select at least one field as key field. That is, in our case, I'm using airline ID as key field. And finish. So that's how you can create entity type, entity set. From so-and-so structure, we are selecting the fields, we are importing the fields. While importing, we are making one field as key field in this example. That is airline ID. For output purpose, we have selected all the required fields. Now we are able to get this. Now let us go with step 4. If you don't want to use mapping,
hello.
If you have any doubts, you can ask me at the end. If there is any audio issue, just log out and log in.
Okay.
Just follow that same rule every day. If any doubt, you can ask me at the end of the session. Okay. Okay, so here, say suppose I don't want to use mapping technique with BAPI. Then what you need to do? You have to generate runtime artifacts. And then we have to open DPC extension class. And you have to manually write the code to access BAPI. If you don't want to use mapping, then this is the approach we have to follow. Generate runtime artifacts, go to DPC extension class and manually write the code in order to access a BAPI. But in this example, I've decided to use mapping technique. I feel that mapping will satisfy my requirement, so I can go with a mapping technique. That is step 4. So maintain input mapping and output mapping between ODATA service and BAPI. Between ODATA service and BAPI, we have to maintain mapping in this scenario. So what you can do is just expand here. Expand service implementation and expand your entity set. And BAPI is fetching the data. It is fetching collection of records. So better go to get entity set query operation here. Why we are going for get entity set query operation? Because BAPI is fetching collection of records. So you can right click this and map to data source. That's the option you can select. So map to data source will allow you to maintain mapping between OData service and BAPI. Okay, so let me take this screenshot. So you can expand service implementation. So for so-and-so entity set, there is get entity set query operation. We have decided to use this because BAPI in this example is fetching collection of records. For that, you can maintain a mapping by selecting this option. So map to data source. Okay, so let me write it here. Just expand service implementation folder. Expand entity set. In this example, that is flight set is the entity set. And then you can just right click, get entity set query operation. And then select map to data source. Select that option. Then you can provide data source type as remote function call. BAPI is internally remote function call. BAPI is internally RFC. So you provide data source type as remote function call. And then provide data source name. In our case, data source name is BAPI flight get list. So let us provide that, BAPI flight get list. Then continue. So at this level, now it opens a mapping editor, a simple mapping editor. At this level, I think it opens mapping editor. Now what we can do, we can maintain input mapping, and we need to maintain output mapping. Maintain input mapping and also maintain output mapping. So we are going to do that in step 4. So let me try here. You can right click, get entity set query option, map to data source, and you can select data source type as remote function call, provide BAPI name, BAPI flight get list in our case, and then just click continue here. Now it opens a mapping editor. You can see this. So left side ODATA fields, right side BAPI related fields. Left side ODATA fields, right side BAPI related fields. You can see that. But here you can see there is airline ID that's available. Airline is available in both the input and output here. You can see this. So what you can do is you can just add one option here and select this small size icon here. It's like F4. You can just select that and select airline ID here. And what I want to do is for this, I want to maintain mapping with BAPI airline. So you can just drag drop here. So airline of a BAPI is having, and it's an importing parameter. So it is taking the mapping direction as input here. You can see the mapping direction. So it is taken as input when you drag drop. Now there are other parameters here. These parameters, these fields, I can use it for holding the output. So the first option, I want to use it for input. The remaining fields, I want to use it for output purpose. So what we can do is we can directly click on propose mapping. It will automatically take output mapping. You can see if I click on propose mapping, all the fields from flight list is output parameter. So it will take all the fields from that and it will map with ODATA service fields here. Then you can see output mapping direction is established here with flight list fields. Flight list is the output parameter of a BAPI. That is what we have analyzed initially in step 1. This will send list of flights data to the front end. Okay, let me do it here. Let me delete this. If you want, you can delete mapping at any point of time. You can right click here and map to data source. You can redo this. Provide RFC remote function call, provide BAPI name, then it opens mapping editor. So for input and output, the fields are not matching. So let me add one more field here. That is like you can select the fields from your entity type, that is flight. For example, I've selected airline ID. I want to use this first field for maintaining input mapping. So you can drag drop airline from BAPI flight get list here. And then for output purpose, I want to use other fields. So what you can do is you can directly click on propose mapping, or you can go to flight list of a BAPI. Flight list of a BAPI is output parameter. So you can drag drop one by one. So it maintains output mapping here. You need not use all the fields. Whichever fields are important for you, you can select only those fields also. It need not be all the fields. So you can establish output mapping field by field like this, or you can directly click on propose mapping. So now with this approach, we are trying to establish input and output mapping between ODATA service and BAPI here. This is one of the technique. Let me just take this screenshot here. So left side, these are ODATA fields. These are ODATA fields. And right side, these are BAPI related fields. So what we have done is, just highlight this. And these are the BAPI related fields. Whatever we have seen in SE37, the same fields will be reflected here. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to maintain mapping. So between airline and airline ID, we are just maintaining a mapping. So here we have to drag and drop. So technically this is having a mapping, input mapping. And for remaining fields, we are maintaining output mapping with flight list here. Flight list will send list of flights data, so that you can use it for output mapping with these things. So all the fields here, they're maintaining output mapping here. So you can see the mapping direction, and accordingly you can do this. You can drag drop field by field, or you can propose mapping directly. So technically all these things are for output mapping. Price, currency, etc. You need not use all the fields. Whichever fields are important for you, you can refer only those fields also. Using all fields, maintaining mapping with all fields is not mandatory. So what we're trying to do is, for first field, we are maintaining input mapping. For all the remaining fields, we are maintaining output mapping. Input mapping is done with airline. Output mapping is done with flight list fields here. So this is how you can establish a mapping between ODATA service and a BAPI. So we have added one new field, first field, that is to establish mapping as input with BAPI. And flight list fields are for output purpose. We are maintaining mapping with these things. Okay, so for our understanding, this is like ODATA side, and this is like BAPI level. Between these two things, we are establishing input and output mapping here. between ODATA service and BAPI, we are establishing input mapping and output mapping. But every BAPI will not fit under this scenario. Every BAPI may not fit under this scenario. You have to use manual approach, which we are going to discuss in the coming days. Okay, let me save this. Input mapping and output mapping. Okay, let me write those things here in input mapping. What we have done is we have added one new field here, left side. Let me write that. Just click plus icon. Left side, you can do that. That is at ODATA level. Just select something like airline ID. This is for input purpose. And drag drop airline field from BAPI to something like airline ID of ODATA service. Drag drop airline field from BAPI to airline ID of ODATA service. So that will establish input mapping. So that will establish input mapping. For output mapping, you can drag drop each field from BAPI flight list to each field of ODATA service. That means you can repeat this for every output field. Drag drop will happen from right to left. Drag drop always happens from right to left. Just save it. So that's the end of output mapping here. Or you can directly click on propose mapping. It will check the matching fields and it will propose output mapping fields. Okay, so now you can save it. So for these things, these are all internally generated. This mapping, input mapping, output mapping, creation of entity type, entity set, these things are technically like metadata generation. So what you can do is now you can go for step 5. In step 5, you can generate runtime artifacts. Generate runtime artifacts. It's very simple. We have already done earlier, just for understanding the basics. The same thing we'll try to do it here. Okay, mapping is done. Let me go to this. Select your project folder. Click on this red color icon. It will generate runtime artifacts. That means it will generate all these classes: MPC extension, MPC, DPC extension, DPC, model, and the service. In theory sessions, I've already covered this. So technically, all these classes will be generated. You can just save it in package or local. So it may take some 1 or 2 minutes to generate all those classes with all methods, metadata, etc. Okay, so here you can see all the classes are generated that you can see in this section. If you go to runtime artifacts, it's an empty folder. Now we are able to get all 6 options here. You can see that. So select project folder. And click on that red color icon. Continue. Save in package. And then you can just finish. So what happens at this level? Internally, the complete metadata is registered inside MPC class. Automatically that will happen when you generate runtime artifacts. Internally, complete metadata is registered inside MPC class according to data model. And not only that, we have established mapping in this scenario. So internally, the ODATA service will access BAPI via DPC class. The framework will do from a DPC class. If you want to write the code, you have to write it in DPC extension class. The framework will generate auto-generated code in DPC class. As a developer, if you want to write the code, then you have to write it in DPC extension class. So in today's scenario, everything is auto-generated in OData service. So you can open DPC class. In DPC class, get entity set method. In that method, OData service will access a BAPI. OData service will access a BAPI via DPC class get entity set method. If you don't want to maintain mapping, then go to DPC extension class, write the manual code. That's a different technique. So here you can see, just for understanding purpose, if I go to DPC class, in DPC class, there will be get entity set method because we've done mapping with that. Get entity set method of so-and-so flight set. So if you double click that, you can see the code is auto-generated here. And the most important thing is you can see BAPI is internally triggered here. BAPI flight get list, that means it will call a remote function call. This is auto-generated code because of mapping technique. So BAPI flight get list is accessed by using a call function statement here. You can pass airline as input and you can get flight list as output. So this is the auto-generated code. The framework is doing for this because of we are maintaining mapping. So get entity set method of OData service. Get entity set method of OData service is trying to access a BAPI here. BAPI flight get list. Get entity set method of OData service is trying to access a BAPI. That is nothing but it is using a BAPI by using a call function statement. You can pass input here and you can get the output here between OData and BAPI. Pass input to this BAPI and you can get output from the BAPI. And the same thing we are going to do with front-end UI5 Fiori. So this is auto-generated code, input to BAPI. This is output from BAPI. So that's how the things are generated here. In case if you want to write your manual code, you should not write in DPC class. You have to write the code in DPC extension class. How to do that? We are going to discuss from the next session onwards. There will be 10 different methods. We are going to use those methods manually. Today's scenario is one special scenario where we think that BAPI contains the entire database functionality, which will satisfy my front-end requirement. That's the reason why we are trying to use mapping technique. Mapping technique will not fit for all scenarios. Please remember. Okay, so here, auto-generated code in get entity set method of DPC class because of mapping technique. Just for knowledge purpose, I've opened it. But here you can just see metadata will be generated in MPC class. ODATA will access BAPI via DPC class using get entity set method. Okay, let me go back. You need not write any code here because of mapping technique. Everything is auto-generated. So what you do is just go to service maintenance and you have to register the service. So step 6. Register the service. It's OData service. Double click on service maintenance folder. Double click service maintenance folder. I think then you can directly click on register. And here also I think it will ask for package, etc. So let me just select register option. Just continue. Here package assignment. If you have a package, just assign that, or you can just save it local and continue. And for that OData project, this will be considered as a technical OData service name with underscore SRV. For OData service project, this will be considered as OData service name, and that should be used in the front-end applications. We don't access project name from front-end. We access always the service name from front-end with underscore SRV. Okay, just save it local, then continue. So now you can see you're getting registration status as green color here. The service is registered in gateway component. If the connections are successful between gateway and backend, then you'll get registration status as success here. So click on register, then click yes. You can finish. So you can register the OData service. That means technically we are activating OData service. Registering OData service is like technically activating OData service in SICFT code. Now what we can do, step 7, we can test the OData service. So you can open service maintenance folder, then open gateway client. That you can use it for testing OData service within the SAP server. Within the SAP server, if you want to test OData service functionality, use gateway client. And you can select entity sets, in our case, flight sets. Okay, you can select get option and execute the service. Okay, so let me give some different URLs here. Let me go to gateway client. This is a testing screen. This is not the permanent screen. This is just a temporary screen for testing OData functionality. If the functionality is working fine, then we can develop the actual screens by using UI5 and Fiori. Input screen, input table, output table, input forms, output forms, so that we are going to do it in actual development in UI5 Fiori. This is just a temporary screen. This is just meant for developer. For end users, we have to develop UI5 Fiori screens. Okay, let us test it. I'm selecting entity set here. So there is only one entity set in this case, that is flight set. Select that. So I'm not passing any input, just we are selecting entity set. We are not passing any input. Execute the service, then you should be in a position to get all output records here. And output will be displayed by default in XML format. So you can see American Airlines. We are able to get that output data here. If you scroll down, you'll get Delta Airlines. You can see here. And if you scroll down, you'll get Lufthansa Airways. You can see here. Still, if you scroll down, I think you can get Singapore Airlines. So when there is no input, we are getting all types of records here. United Airlines. By default, output is displayed in XML format. So these are the records that are coming via BAPI to ODATA service. ODATA service is displaying the output in XML format by default. Record 1, record 2, record 3, etc. You can see that. And most important thing is we are getting American Airlines, Delta Airlines, Japan Airlines, everything. Singapore Airlines, and you can see United Airlines. So we are able to get all records when input is blank. Okay, so let me just write it here. Fetch all records. What you can do is you can use this type of syntax. After service name, just use entity set. After service name, just entity set, then it will fetch all records here. Okay, let me take this screenshot. Just providing entity set here, you will get all records in this case as part of output. We are using get option. That's a default option. We are executing the service from gateway client. So this is how you can fetch all records. Just provide entity set without any input. Okay, let me save this. This is testing screenshot 1. Now say suppose I want to fetch records based on some specific inputs. Fetch records based on filter inputs. Then what you can do? Select entity set again. After selecting entity set, you can use $$ filter as a keyword for passing input. Filter equal to, you can provide something like airline ID equal to, for example, I want to get Delta Airlines records matching with DL, Delta Airlines. Only those records I'm expecting from a BAPI to ODATA service. So provide airline ID equal to DL with filter keyword. That's a standard keyword. Execute the service. Now you can see we will be able to get Delta Airlines only. Records matching with only Delta Airlines, those records are displayed here. You can notice that. All records matching with only Delta Airlines DL. So you can see those records are retrieved. So you can use this type of syntax if you want to pass some filter input here. You can fetch, for example, AA, American Airlines, or for example, you can use UA, United Airlines, or JL, maybe Japan Airlines. So let me take this screenshot. So we are using entity set here. After entity set will collect the output. Filter is a keyword. And then we are passing airline ID equal to DL. So we are able to get those records matching with DL. City from, city to, arrival time, departure time, currency, price, etc. Everything you will get it here. So this is like your output. We are executing the service with get option. Okay, this is like testing screenshot 2. Now let me change the input. Instead of DL, let me use JL, Japan Airlines. Execute the service. Now you can see BAPI is sending Japan Airlines as part of output here. You'll get those records in this case, only Japan Airlines. This is like testing screenshot 3. Now let me change input again. For example, let me use UA, United Airlines. Execute the service. Then BAPI will send output. And here airline ID is UA, that is records matching with UA, United Airlines. Those records are retrieved here. So here United Airlines, UA is the input in filter, then you'll get those records matching with that criteria. Okay, so this is like testing screenshot 4. Take one more here. For example, airline ID equal to AA, American Airlines. Execute the service, then you can see airline ID AA, American Airlines. Those records are retrieved here. All records matching with AA. Those records are retrieved. And by default, while testing, you'll get XML format for displaying the output data. There's a begin tag, end tag. In between that, there is a record value. Whatever is in black color, that is the record data. There will be begin tag, end tag, and there will be data in between, that is record data in between. Okay, so testing screenshot 5. So you can use like this. If you want to fetch records based on filter input, you can use airline ID equal to DL, AA, UA, JL, etc. So that's how you can fetch records based on filter input. And there are other syntaxes. Say suppose I want to fetch records with specific fields in output. I want to display records with only specific fields in the output. Then you can change this here. I think you can use select here. First select entity set. After that you can use, I think you can use question mark dollar. You can use select keyword. Select is a keyword to fetch data with specific fields. For select keyword, you can use some specific fields like I want to see airline ID, comma, airline, comma, something like city from. I want to see the data of these fields. Airline ID, airline, city from, and price. So then execute the service. So here you can see, you'll get all records in this case matching with only 4 fields. Airline ID, airline, city from, and price. Only 4 fields are reflected for each record as part of output here. You can see this. Only 4 fields are displayed for output because we are using select keyword. That's a standard keyword. For select keyword, you can pass the list of fields which you want to see in the output while executing the service. So that is possible here. So this is to fetch data with specific fields. Select is a keyword and you can provide field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, etc. Then you'll get the output for each record with these 4 fields in this case. So select is a keyword in this case. This is like testing screenshot 6. Let me copy this. If you want 3 fields, you can try like this. If you want 4 fields, you can try. You can use select keyword and pass the list of fields which you want to see as part of output. Now say suppose I want to get the complete count, to fetch the complete record count. Then you can see, you can select entity set here, and there is one URI option. Add URI option, standard option like $count you can use. $count, execute the service, then it will fetch the complete count. The total records for the entity set is 4873. So there's a total record count you're able to get with $count here. So here, what we're trying to do is, after entity set, we are just providing $count. A count is a standard keyword here. While testing, you can use this type of URLs. Use entity set, and then you can use /$count. Count is a standard keyword. Of course, execute the service with get option. Then you'll get the total record count here. Okay, this is like testing screenshot 7. Okay, let me copy this syntax. $count. Now, say suppose I want to get records in JSON format. I want to fetch output data or output records in, for example, JSON format. That's alternative format. If you want, you can use that. So what you can do is you can use something like this. Select entity set here and add URI option. $format equal to JSON here. $format equal to JSON, you can use that and execute the service. Then the same data, but it will be displayed in JSON format as part of results here. So you can see American Airlines, airline ID AA, American Airlines. So you'll get the data in JSON format with left and right combination. Left side field name, right side record value. Left side field name, right side record value. So you'll get this as part of output, record 1, record 2, record 3, etc. But it is displayed in JSON format instead of XML format. XML is default. This is JSON format. Okay, let me take this screenshot. After entity set, you can use $format. That format is a standard keyword. With you can use JSON and execute the service with get option. Output will be in JSON format here. So this is also like testing screenshot 8. Now say suppose I want to fetch records in XML format. Default is XML. You need not mention anything, but if you want, you can mention like this, format equal to XML. Format is a standard keyword. For that, you can pass XML. Even if you don't use format keyword, by default, it is XML. Just for knowledge purpose, let me use XML here. Format equal to XML. Execute the service, and you'll get the output data in XML format. Even if you don't provide, it will be XML. It is changing the format. Okay, similarly, let me use another syntax, that is to fetch metadata of ODATA service. Just by using service URL, just by providing service name, I want to know what is the metadata of that service. What are the list of fields? What is the data type of each field? Length of each field? What are the entity types? What are the list of entity sets? And what is a complete service URL? So I want to check metadata of that service. Okay, you can see now by default it is XML. We are able to get it now. Let me save this as well. So here we are using entity set. This is for previous one. Format equal to XML. Use get option, execute the service. Even if you don't mention this, that is by default XML. Now, let me use this. Now, let me test one more keyword here. Now, I want to fetch the metadata of ODATA service, the list of fields, data type, length, list of entity types, entity sets, the complete service URL, everything comes under metadata. And which field is a key field? So that comes under metadata. Let me check here. So you can use add URI option here. Add URI option and $metadata. Metadata is a standard keyword. So let me select $metadata, execute the service. Then you can see the list of fields, the data type, length, list of entity types, entity sets. So that information will be available here. You can see this now. Entity type is flight. You can see that. Entity type is flight, that is visible here. The service name is this one with underscore SRB. And you can see the key field. Key field is airline ID. And the list of fields like airline ID, string length 3, airline string length 20, flight date, you can see, and you can see something like airport to, city to, departure time, arrival date, etc. Price, currency. So the list of fields are also available. And what are the entity sets? There is only one entity set, that is flight sets. And what is a complete service URL? So this is a complete service URL. That is nothing but FQDN URL. I've already covered in theoretical notes in previous sessions. This is the service path, namespace, and the service name. But if you add server name and port number, then this becomes the complete service URL. If you add server name and server port number, then it becomes complete URL. That is nothing but FQDN URL. That also comes under metadata here. So, okay, let me save this. Let me save it like this so that we can add all the options. So here, when you use $metadata, that's a standard keyword. So it shows entity type name and all these things. The key field and the list of fields with the data type and length, everything is available for each field. So all these things comes under metadata here. Okay, let me just highlight some of these things. Okay, let me add one more option. These things also. Same screenshot. Scroll down, you'll get all these things. So here you'll get name of the entity set and the complete service URL Up to here, this is complete service URL. So all these things comes under metadata. You can execute the service to get that metadata with get option. So this is like, okay, testing screenshot 10. This is a syntax you can use. After service name, you have to use $metadata. So if you think that our ODATA service is working fine, now what we can do, we can go to our SAP Web ID, or we can use Bash tool, and we can create a Fiori project and access the ODATA service, developing the actual screens. When we go for UI5 Fiori, we are going to use different tools like this, Web ID, Bash tool, etc. And we can create a Fiori project, access ODATA service, we can develop actual screens. The ODATA service functionality remains same. The screens will change. We don't use and we don't provide this gateway client screen to the end user. It is meaningless. We have to provide the screens which will provide input, which will get the output. So those screens we have to provide, which is user-friendly screens. And those screens should access from all devices and from all browsers. Fiori screens, basically, which we are going to develop, it can be accessed from all browsers and all devices. So those screens we are going to develop by using the same existing ODATA service which we have created. That's how we can proceed. So coming to front-end point of view, front-end side, what we do is we create a table screen element for displaying the output. For table screen element, we can use table items equal to something like entity set. Then you'll get those records. For example, flight set is our entity set. Then you'll get output records in the front-end table by configuring like this. So that you'll understand when we go for front-end. Don't worry. If you have any doubts, you can ask me now.
Sir, yesterday I was absent, so I just wanted to know one thing. By when can I get the server access? Because I wanted to start.
I think I've already sent to you. You can just check it in spam folder.